In this episode, I talk with Commander Mike Bing Crosby as we talk about prostate cancer and leading through prostate cancer.
Welcome aboard. This is the Admiral's Almanac, your leadership life connection, bringing leaders from all walks of life into yours so you can take charge, improve your leadership, and improve your life. With the wit and wisdom of your host, Rear Admiral Gary Hall.
And thank you. It's November, or some people call it Movember, where we focus on men's health issues. Today, we're going to focus primarily on prostate cancer with an interview with Commander Mike Bing Crosby. So let's take it away and talk to Mike. Okay, and welcome back to the Admiral's Almanac. I'm in our downtown studio with Mike Crosby, call sign Bing. I'm your host, Gary Hall, call sign Viper. Mike is a Naval Academy graduate, class of 1983, and a fighter pilot. I'm from the class of 1976, a helo pilot. So how did we meet? Mike? We both have been diagnosed with prostate cancer. And so I think you've been a great leader in the fight for prostate cancer, and with it being Movember with men's health awareness, I thought this would be a great podcast. So Mike and I will share our journeys and how Mike has been a leader in raising awareness on prostate cancer in vets. And so remember, this is not medical advice, but two Navy guys giving you insight into our journeys so that men will make better decisions. So Mike, I think I met you because I had been diagnosed with prostate cancer and looking at what procedures to go with. And we got our Naval Academy newsletter, Wave Tops, and for some reason I opened it up and it said, "Fighter pilot attacks cancer with precision." And I said, I bet you that guy's got prostate cancer. And of course it was Mike Crosby, and the topic was cyberknife, and there we go. So why don't you tell us, Mike, first of all, welcome. Why don't you tell us about your journey from, just a regular guy, and next thing you know, you've got prostate cancer?
Yeah, thanks, Viper. I appreciate it. It was one of those things where I had always, I think like all of us, maybe aviators, do it more regularly than others. I'll brag about us a little bit, but we always had to do an annual flight physical. And when I left active duty, I always kept up that sort of just was in the schedule, right? I mean, not a lot of, as I found out, not a lot of men do that if their wives don't schedule it for them. And I don't know, there's a lot of discussion about whether that's ego or you don't want to know, or it's just avoidance, or whatever. But we do try to tell people nowadays that just go see the doc once a year. Just put it on your business schedule and go once a year. Takes a couple of hours, get your blood drawn, figure out what's in there. That's all this is. It's
Absolutely
not that hard. But I had, so in 2015, 14 actually, I had moved all of my stuff to Phoenix VA. And if everybody remembers the press and what was going on at the Phoenix VA with the scheduling scandal and delays and whatnot, I had forced them, because I had to ask them to put the PSA screening on my panel. I had a family member through marriage that had dealt with prostate cancer, so I was aware of the PSA screening and scanning and that, or just the blood levels. So I'd always ask them to do such. And what had happened is in 14, I was working overseas selling airplanes, and I'd come back from my physical and I left without getting all the results. So half my fault, half theirs. I called in for the results, and they said, "Oh, you're fine. Take your statin, and you'll be good." Right?
Yeah.
And I didn't go through the details. I didn't get a paper copy, and then I go in the next year for my physical, and my PSA is at somewhere around 13.5, 14.5.
Wow. So tell us what a normal PSA should be, what men should be concerned with.
Yeah, it's okay. So PSA, for those of you that haven't heard this, it's a prostate-specific antigen, and that's a simple blood test. It's in any of your normal blood tests. They can, it's a not even a vial. They just take a spot of it and do a test. That test will come back with a level somewhere between 0 and whatever number. But they used to say that it was 0 to 4 was sort of the normal range. And above 4, you would be recommended to go to a urologist and discuss a biopsy. I will say today, though, that trend is changing a little bit in that it's more important to look at the rate of rise, not so much always just the static number, because you could have a PSA of 1 and have it go to 3 in a year, and it would look like a hockey stick, and that's a bit of a concern. There's also, people don't quite realize it, that there's about 4 ways that your PSA can rise or be elevated. One is through an infection or BPH type of a thing, which they can take care of with antibiotics. There's strenuous exercise. A lot of bike riding before you go in for your test is going to increase your PSA. If you have sex before 48 hours before you go in, you're going to have a residual high PSA. Or if you've got cancer, or it's not going to prove that you have cancer, but cancer does excrete a higher PSA level, and that's one of the indicators. It's not it's not a perfect test. They're trying to develop other tests right now to get to that point, and we try to encourage the research at that area, because that leads us to the point that this disease is curable if it's found at the low to intermediate stage. If it hasn't metastasized and left the prostate, you have about a 99.9% chance of curing your prostate cancer.
Yeah,
if it gets out, that percentage goes down to about 30%.
Yeah,
and big deal.
Yeah, I was going to say, U.S. News and World Report studied curable cancers from 1970s to current, and the curable rate for prostate cancer is number 1, the most curable. So one point that you made that I think we want to highlight is you've always said, please check my PSA when taking blood samples. And a lot of times you go to a clinic and that might not be on the script. So, it's worth, men need to ask, are you screening for my PSA? And if not, please do. And the other thing you mentioned was, the rate of rise. And that's how I wound up in the prostate clinic. Was my doctor, again, as aviators, doing that annual physical, and he looked at the rate of rise over a period of several years. And I was just at 4, but the rate of rise is what sent me right to the prostate clinic, and the head doctor there at Walter Reed said, I'm spring-loaded to the biopsy position. So next thing you know, I'm in the biopsy position. So, which we can get to, but being the most curable cancer, I think, as I was talking with you earlier, that maybe the reason that men die is, I think it's fear and embarrassment. Fear of learning that they might have something, or embarrassment, or they don't want to talk about anything between, as I said, between the thigh bone and the belly button. And a lot of men are concerned about, how do you get examined in those areas? Well, so I wound up going to, getting referred from my doctor. He didn't even do, and we're going to use the term DRE. He said, I'm going to send you right to the prostate clinic. And for those of you that don't know what a DRE is, that's a digital rectal exam, and do not fear it. It's over in a second. Anyway, so I had my biopsy taken, and it came back where 2 or 3 of the samples of 12 samples had cancer in it. And I then went, and my doctor said, don't worry, this is life-changing, not life-threatening. And I had to ask the question, do I have prostate cancer? And the answer was, yes, you have prostate cancer. Now, the one thing they do at Walter Reed is they have what I call the prostate fair, where 6 men and their spouses show up on a Monday, and they spend all day talking about the options for care. And what is interesting is why you need to have your spouse involved is, again, we all then were separated into different rooms, and the doctors rotated around. And when the radiation folks came and met with me, one, they wanted to talk about what I was doing on the National Security Council for 20 minutes before they talked about my prostate. And then my wife said something, when the surgeons come in here, I want to talk about cyberknife. She had somehow heard that, and that's when the doctor said it's neither cyber nor a knife, it's radiation. And so when I was presented with all the options, I decided to, sleep on it and think on it. And that's when I saw you in Wave Tops. Fighter pilot approaches cancer with precision. And I said, I wonder if that's cyberknife. And sure enough, it was. How about tell me what the statistics are of men getting cancer?
Right now in society, we're at about, of our whole United States population, 1 in 9 men will have prostate cancer in their life. African Americans are about 1 in 7, but and veterans we're seeing are somewhere below that 1 in 7. We're probably in the neighborhood of 1 in 6 to 1 in 5. And we don't know why. There hasn't been a study. We know that African Americans and anybody else that has it in their family, it's a hereditary component to it, and so that has a much higher propensity if you've had it in your family that you're going to get it. We're starting to see a bit of a younger component to this. We're seeing it in the 40s, and it used to be called an old man's disease. It's not, and people used to say, "Oh, don't worry about it. You're going to die of something else." It's not always the case. I was 55 when I was diagnosed, and so it does come on fairly early. I've seen guys recently in their upper 30s, 36, 38, that are having to deal with it. So it's really age dependent, and we don't know. We're sure it's probably from some sort of exposure. That's why the higher rates amongst veterans. There's a raging debate ongoing inside the community as to whether we screen more often or we screen veterans more effectively, or there's just more exposure. And I think maybe it's a combination of all three. When we're now, the society with COVID now is all starting to talk about testing and results and probabilities and statistics. And a lot of people don't go through the entire understanding of all those epidemiology studies and why. Congress has passed a couple of rules or a couple of suggestions recently. There's a study going on that has been appropriated for military aviators, both air crew and pilots and air crew, have a much higher propensity for prostate cancer. Mm-hmm. And so there's a study now to look at why. And some of us have contributed some tissue and some blood and things like that to this study to really figure out. There's some experts up at Harvard at the Broad Institute and then at NASA, Dr. Jeff Jones and others that think they can maybe figure out where it's coming from, whether it's radiation, UV radiation, equipment stuff, chemical from flight decks or flight line exposures, or the other they know is, I think there's a theory, and it's been fairly well proven that high levels of adrenaline in your body basically can break down some of your DNA or make it mutate in certain ways. And they believe that part of that is maybe affecting your prostate. Anyway.
That's an interesting fact, because you and I come from high adrenaline careers. In fact, when I retired, I realized I needed to do something to give me an adrenaline rush, but then eventually the body says no.
Yeah, right.
So when I went to the prostate fair, one of the things that was interesting was they sent a social worker in to talk to me. And, they asked questions like, do you have somebody to talk to? And I said, well, I'm a late in life Catholic, and I've got a priest who's my spiritual advisor, and I talk to him often. And the counselor went, okay, the social worker went, okay, you're good, signed off my checklist and walked around. So it was interesting that if you're a man of practicing faith, you don't need a social worker. But what they offered was standard radiation, go in for 8 weeks. That's 40 sessions of radiation. And so think about that. That's 8 weeks. And I guess if you miss a session, now you have to reset. And so there's side effects with every procedure. And then they talked about the seeds, implanting seeds in your prostate. And they said they're
the brachytherapy.
Yeah, they said it's the nuclear seeds that are the size of a grain of rice, and they put 75 to 100 in your prostate. And I went, how the hell do they do that? At which point my wife said, how do you do that? And when he explained how they did that, he also said, we can do it with a local while you're awake, but if you're a chatter, we're going to put you to sleep. And he went, Admiral, you're definitely a talker. We're going to put you to sleep. And when they explained how they did it, my wife said, if he goes that route, will you please take a picture of the process for me? So I guess we both of us will laugh. Anybody that needs to know how they actually put those seeds in there, send me an email. And then surgery. And when they described the surgery, I don't know if we should describe the surgery, but it's basically robotic. One person at the bedside, one person on the controls, and they snip above your prostate, below your prostate, try and save your nerve endings that are attached to the prostate, and then pull it out and put a catheter in there. And, again, we're not giving medical advice, but my buddies that have had the surgery are now having follow-on surgeries, not for prostate cancer, but for the issues with the surgery. But the interesting...
we should just tell them it's either there's a high probability of erectile dysfunction or urinary incontinence issues. And it's that's been one where they do try to tell you that it's and I'm not trying to again, not give health advice or not to give healthcare advice, but there's a lot of things, and this is what led me to my choice for CyberKnife. I mean, I'll be honest with you, and that's why I took it as precision, because first go around, I wanted to, I felt that, this is a disease that you just can't, it's not going to go away, right? I mean, even if it's cured, you still have to manage it. You still have to watch. And so, or they call it cured, I think you still need to be aware of it the rest of your life. And I felt that I guess I'm more of an engineer, and I was looking at the precision that CyberKnife provided. I reached out to family members that knew about it, and Sandy Vermeulen and Bob Meyer up in Seattle were some of the pioneers in CyberKnife. And what it is might as well tell them it's a high intensity radiation device. You go in, instead of the 30 or 40 rounds of radiation, you go through 5. Some guys actually, Don Fuller here in San Diego is only doing 4 now. So there's a theory, I think there's a study going on that the more radiation you can provide in the lower fractions or the lower number of times, the better outcome that you're getting. But it's incredibly accurate, sub-millimeter accuracy, 3-dimensional device that rotates. It looks like the Toyota manufacturing line,
right?
Robot that flies around you and drives those radiation beams through your prostate. And they can plan it. Takes a day or so to plan, a couple of days with 3D planning tools to stay away from or build margins around other tissues, whether that be your colon, your intestines, your stomach, your bones, your pelvic structure, that sort of thing, to preserve those things. You really don't want radiation going through all of your bones. I mean, it's just not something that as we get older, these are things we've got to look out for. The breaking of hips or the brittle hips and that kind of thing. You don't want that. So it was one of the ones I too had done that, and I felt I'm still a big proponent of the technology, and I wrote an article about it, and I did publish it, hopefully for the benefit of our classmates and alumni, and I'm glad that I don't know. I think you told me that you saw it, or actually I think your wife saw it, and got a wonderful call from you guys, and so that was our story, how we met.
Yeah, and so I did elect to get CyberKnife, and I was referred out to Georgetown MedStar Hospital there in Georgetown, Washington, D.C., with Dr. Sean Collins. And the technician said Dr. Collins doesn't want to waste any radiation, so he's very precise in it. And they do put some protection around other organs. And they also, that process includes inserting some gold markers in your prostate, and that's done. They knock you out. You're done in 10 minutes. But that's so they can do the 3D mapping. But the interesting thing that I found is, our fathers, if a priest said something, it was a word of God, let's follow it. If a doctor said something, it was word of God, and let's follow it. Our fathers, they would have said, you have prostate cancer, we're going to cut it out tomorrow. And they'd go, okay. But what I've realized is no doctor would recommend anything. They would tell you what they can do, and you had to make the decision. And I thought that's an interesting process, that you have to really get involved in your treatment. Now, every treatment does have side effects, and the other one is watchful waiting. And that means I think you have to get a biopsy every 6 months or so, or,
Well, it's active surveillance is actually the term they're using. And I challenge guys that if they go on active surveillance for the low PSAs and PSAs below 6 or below 4, they think it's low. I try to recommend that when they say active surveillance, it's the first word that's really key. It's active surveillance. It's not just surveillance. It's not taking this thing. It needs to be understood that means you are integral. You need to have a communication line with your physician, and you need to watch what's going on, because once it's there and once your PSA is rising, there's really not a magic bullet. You can't eat enough pears or apricots or whatever to make it go down. It is there, and you're going to have to watch it. And at some point, it's up to you and your physician to make that decision when you want to take action on it. That's what I think the beauty of these new technologies, like the CyberKnife, and I'm going to tell you about my recurrence in just a second. I've actually had a recurrence, and it's we knew that it was my CyberKnife was a bit questionable when I did it, but I had a recurrence, and I just went through a new technology called a laser ablation, which is actually, they say, and I guess they've proven it to me, is a little more accurate than even the CyberKnife. So same kind of device, or not a device. It's actually kind of very manual, where they insert a laser in a very small probe, and they literally touch the tissue that is been predetermined to be cancerous. So if it's your prostate that they're going to treat on a nouveau treatment where you're just discovered, they'll take out the entire prostate that way. And it's literally ablating, or in other words, burning it, or from a laser's perspective, just dispensing with the tissue. Mine was a recurrence that they found through another big technology that's not really available in the U.S. right now, called a PSMA, or prostate specific membrane assessment, or assay, prostate specific membrane assay. So PSMA, and that is it's a PET scan, but they inject you with some nuclear medicine before you go through the PET scan, and it will light up. It's a real rapidly attracted to any tissue or any residual chemicals, or any membrane that has prostate cancer in it in your body anywhere. And then they take a full PET scan picture of you. And in mine, the last one, they found 3 lymph nodes. And the only place that is actively really pursuing that clinical study right now, or trial, is at the West Los Angeles VA.
Oh, wow.
So it's, and it's, as we talk about these things, we're promoting now. This is one of the things that the VA does do a lot of research, and it's they've got some incredible physicians, incredible researchers, and so West LA VA is doing this. It's free of charge. They'll take any vet right now with any level of prostate cancer, And so recurrent, nouveau, stage 1, 2, 3, 4, doesn't matter. They will take you and they will scan you with this technology. And I think it's actually changing the way we manage our cancer. And this is something that wasn't available 5 years ago. You and I didn't have this choice.
Right. I mean, it's amazing how much technology has changed just in the past 4 or 5 years since we've been dealing with this. Now, I want to say that the cyber knife that I had was 5 sessions, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 week, Tuesday, Thursday, the next week. You lie down on a mechanical platform that's going to line your body, and they dim the lights and they turn on the music and you can doze off, and 40 minutes later, you're done and back to work. Now, it does have some side effects, and I was talking to another admiral who's chosen active surveillance. I need to catch up with him, but he said, any side effects? And I go, I did have one side effect, and that is, for the first time in my life, I actually had a bowel movement in a Walmart. And and Admiral Stanley said, "In your pants?" I said, "No, I made it to the bathroom." But later, Dr. Collins explained that shortly after radiation treatment, it's taken some of the elasticity out of your rectum, which I learned more about a rectum, and that you eat one fork more than you should, and your body's going to say 3, 2, 1. Go to the bathroom.
We're done.
We're done. There's
done.
no control. So that's, and I share these things because men need to see the humor aspect as well. And I think if you go through this with a positive attitude, you're going to be absolutely fine. Before we start a little bit of your, what you've done in leading through prostate cancer, anything else we want to mention about men? Ask if they're, set a baseline, track your PSA, ask your doctor, and the doctors are going to make a decision should you be diagnosed.
Yeah, it's something that we're promoting right now is from a veteran's perspective, because I'm sort of focused on our own organization, the Veteran Prostate Cancer Awareness, is that we really feel that population, and we're pushing for this to be categorized as a high risk population, just because of the exposures that we've all had in our careers and in our jobs. We don't know. That's the thing; it's the unknown. But it doesn't hurt to start getting your blood test or ask for a blood test at around the age of 40, and then have an annual screen. Just all it is a simple blood test. The DRE, if there's any indication, and there's a lot of symptoms that go unnoticed. They call it a silent disease for a lot of reasons. And the symptoms that people don't, kind of compare or don't associate with prostate cancer are things like urgency to urinate. And it's not just that you drank too much coffee or you're getting old. That shouldn't happen. You should be able to hold yourself. Erectile dysfunction that can be associated with it. So again, if you're getting old, it's not an excuse. It's you need to tell your doctor about it and have that discussion. Don't be embarrassed. It's part of your body. It says ask your doctor about it. Whether you've got a weak heart or a weak erection, you need to ask your doctor about why it's going on. There's tests they can run to make sure that you're okay. Part of this is making sure that your prostate's not blowing up on.
Right.
And so, it's really just like you're promoting, and thank you for doing so, is that, it's awareness. It's understanding we're men. We have egos that keeps us away from the doctor, but, let's go to the doctor once a year and get it done. Right. So it's just not that hard. And the other is we formed this organization. Our mission is to really to just raise awareness and to help educate. And really, that's the goal, is not to try to change somebody's mind, because that decision is between themselves, their family, and their doctor. And we do promote, though, that this isn't a man's disease. It's a relationship disease, and we use that line because. As you well know, and as I do from firsthand, your wife was probably in the room when they told you had cancer.
Yes.
And that effect immediately changes what's going on in your relationship. It changes your concern for her concern for you. She's now instantly thrown into what they would call a caregiver situation. She didn't sign up for that. And it's your responsibility. I tell people that that your health is your mission, right? It's not somebody else's. It's not the doctor's responsibility, and it's not your wife's responsibility. You have to take responsibility for your health. And so when they say you've got cancer, if you catch it early, like you mentioned, it's curable, it's treatable, and it's curable. You join the ranks of an elite association, but it's curable and it's manageable, and that's really the message we need to get out there. We need to try to promote, and it's just been too long. I mean, if you told a woman that not to get a breast cancer or not to get a mammogram, or she'd just ignore it, don't do it, the world would turn upside down, right?
Right.
We need to have the same approach. We need to have the same approach that women have towards breast cancer. And, we're finding out a lot of ties between the two anyway right now.
Yeah. The point you brought out, I think, is, as I said, when you get cancer, the family gets cancer because your kids are worried about you, your spouse is worried about you. And again, I think what kills men is fear and embarrassment. And, a colonoscopy is a piece of cake, a PSA, a DRE. They're so simple, to monitor your health, set the baselines, and follow through. Well, I think we've given enough information about the disease, the treatment. I think we've covered all the treatment options. Dr. Collins and I both are heavy set men, and he said, we lose weight, our manhood will work better. And he goes, and if you use it more often, he said in front of my wife, and if you use it more often, it will work better. And she looked at him and she said, okay, doctor, I'll take a hit on that one. So he later said, I wish my wife was as funny and caring as your wife. So, this is about leadership. You and I went to the Naval Academy. I call that a leadership, laboratory. But yeah, when we were wearing flight suits, we needed more beer, more flight time. Now that we're out of flight suits, we need more fiber and more bandwidth. And we have a policy amongst my buddies that when we get together, we can only talk about our health for 15 minutes collectively and only 5 minutes on the prostate. But so you are a fighter pilot extraordinaire. You are a leader. Tell me what you've done. Tell us about your organization, what you did with the VA, and a little bit about Zero.
Sure. We when I went through my first treatment sessions with the VA in Phoenix, and at that time when I stepped out to go get treated up at Swedish Hospital in Seattle, I really took a look around the VA. I was traveling extensively at the time, and I'd always volunteered at the VA just because I wanted to be engaged. It was sort of my philanthropic give back, and I loved helping the World War II vets and the Vietnam guys, and it was just something I wanted to give back and stay involved with. And what I started to notice is that there was no educational materials. There was nowhere to find any information. I looked on the website, and this was 2017, early 17. The last updated web page on prostates on the VA website was 2013. And so I sat down and with some good friends and physicians, we said, listen, why don't you start a nonprofit and let's just raise awareness. Let's just try to put something out there and at least have a cause and put it together. And I'd gone to a Zero summit, and we'll talk about Zero, the end of prostate cancer, in a second. But I formed Veterans Prostate Cancer Awareness, which is a 501c3. Got it through. We've had a lot of good sponsorship and a lot of great effects, great support from pharmaceutical companies. Even the Chicago Bears have helped us out. Too bad we don't have any spare quarterbacks for them, but we they've helped us out. A lot of guys are starting to pitch in and call in, and then I had ended up with this recurrence issue, so we kind of took a hit from the active leadership perspective. Meaning I just didn't have time, and so Zero came to me and said, "Hey, come and join with us. Let's partner. Let's get the firms to partner together." Zero, the End of Prostate Cancer. It's the nation's largest patient advocacy organization for prostate cancer. They've been around about 20 years. Thousands and thousands of races, thousands of members. All 50 states are covered. And they said, let's form a veterans line within Zero, and you can manage it. We'll help you. We'll give you all of our resources. They're all approved by the American Cancer Society, the NCCN, American Urological Association. Everybody's signed off on all of the literature that comes out. So there's a great group of standards that deal with anything that comes on Zero's website or its social media pages. They also have developed, programs to actually offer services to survivors and the caregivers. So they have a mentor program. They have what's called 0360, which is a dial-in line, 24/7. If you've got a problem with anything related to prostate, you can dial that phone number and you can get in there. And you can find that number at zerocancer.org. And it's really easy. It's just zerocancer.org. You go in, you can register for the run walks, you can register to donate, you can do your research. All of the guides and any of the information and material that's on that website is essentially, you can consider it approved. I mean, it is a good, for prostate cancer, it's a spot to go to. There's a couple others, PRF.org, Prostate Cancer Research Foundation is one, and PCRI.org, the Prostate Cancer Research Institute. Those really are, to me, the three big ones to go to, and that's why we elected to go with Zero, because they're patient oriented, and we were looking out to be patients, and we've now pulled together with Zero's help veteran specific packages that we will give out to vets. We're trying to get organizations like the VFW, American Legion, Wounded Warriors, all of the various veteran service organizations to pitch in. One is the reason why is that prostate cancer is the number one detected or diagnosed cancer inside the VA. It has been for years, still is today. There's over 14,000 men diagnosed every year that are just veterans in the VA system. We have currently over 500,000 guys that are actively being treated for prostate cancer in the VA system. And of those, there's over 16,000 metastatic cases. Now, that's a big, get to be big numbers, right? And that's from a study that was done last year. It's ended 1 year ago right now, called the Vinci. It's got a long acronym, but it's a core data study done by some scientists inside the VA. And they picked prostate cancer as the disease to study with their artificial intelligence and learning systems. And they've been a little bit surprised at the numbers that they got out of that. But to have a patient database of 500,000 guys with prostate cancer, that's not all of vets, because only 9 million veterans out of 18 or 19 million are even being seen in the VA.
Right.
So, but out of those 9 million, those are the numbers. And that's a big issue. That's why we then turned to Capitol Hill and started to push on some legislation to standardize the treatment, standardize the process, get these physicians or get the doctors the resources that they need to treat this disease, and to raise some awareness, to really, because again, it is treatable. Here's the other sad facts are that there's only 47 radiation devices even in the VA system, and only 3 of those are CyberKnives. And up until 2 years ago, they weren't even treating prostates. They'd just come online. Those 3 CyberKnives have come online within the last 3 years. So it's a device that's been essentially sanctioned by the VA, but it wasn't being used for prostate cancer. It's typically used for head and neck and spinal type cancers and that sort of thing, but not for prostate. Now, So the primary mode of treatment in the VA is that surgery that you talked about, the radical prostatectomy or robotic prostatectomy. And it's the Mission Act was passed in 2018 while you were on staff, and hats off to the administration at that point, because it's been a game changer. A lot of people aren't aware of it. They've done a horrible job of marketing and promoting that.
Right.
It's a great program. Took over for the Choice program, and but what people don't realize is it appropriated $100 billion over a 6-year period of time for VA, for veterans outside care in the community. And that program it's paying for my care right now in my recurrence. They didn't have certain expertise in the VAs to take care of my certain conditions, so it's really paying for my care. I'm alive because of it. So I mean, it's my hat's off to the whole thing, and it's a great way if you know how to navigate it. And we're trying to teach vets how to navigate it, and to teach the administrators and also the physicians why it's important for them to use it. So it's that's our organization, and we those are some of the goals and things we're trying to take on. I needed extra hands, and so that's why we've partnered with Zero, the end of prostate cancer. And so we're starting a campaign. We started it on Veterans Day. We're recruiting 50 vets in 50 states, and the mission for those vets is to interface with your local VA. It's pretty easy. We supply all the materials, essentially handing out information cards and flyers and T-shirts to guys that are prostate cancer survivors. Go into the infusion rooms, drop off qualified information, work with the PAO at the VA, the local VA, on any run walks that would be taking place, any other events that we might be having. But really, it's just it's an ambassador from Zero, the end of prostate cancer, to the VA system, and to offer them no charge, no fee, no nothing, just offer them materials and qualified educational type of materials and information. So that's really the goal of that program. And I think we're up to about 12 already. So, I've been volunteering some of my friends and classmates. So
Good. Well, when you think about how the technology has changed just in the 3 or 4 years that we've been diagnosed, or 5 years, and how much I used to say the VA handled prostate cancer. They waited until you got old, and they removed it with a dull deer antler. And now that they have 3 CyberKnife machines, that's amazing. So, we've come a long way. Again, we're not here to offer medical advice, but to make you think about men's health, whether it be prostate cancer or getting a colonoscopy, PSA. Also, Mike, I reflect back on our Naval Academy years, and we never thought we were going to lose a football game until the final bell. And I think that's, the don't give up the ship. It sounds corny, but and then when we've been deployed at sea, we have to solve problems. And you're a number one example of getting a cancer and saying, no, this is not over. I'm not going to stand on the steps of Capitol Hill or something and with tears in your eyes say, I have prostate cancer. Hey, I've got prostate cancer. We're going to kick ass. We're going to take names. We're going to carry out the plan of the day. We're going to kill this sucker. And you have done that. And there's no way to find out how many veterans that you are helping. There's just no way. But you definitely, through your leadership, you are saving lives through awareness of prostate cancer. And again, this is Movember, Mustache November for men's health. And so we want to tell men, don't be afraid. Have a positive attitude, have faith. Prostate cancer can be cured. But the first step, wives, if you're listening, or significant others, make your man go in, see the doctor, and have the conversation about these issues, about setting a baseline.
Yeah, get screened. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's like, like Nike used to use as the tagline, just do it. That's it. It's just do it. Just go get screened. It's just not that hard. I mean, it's start with a blood test. DRE. There's a if you remember the guy, Mike Rowe, he's the dirty jobs guy, right?
Yep.
So he did a public service announcement that you can find on YouTube. It was done for Zero, the end of prostate cancer, and it's on our website as well. But not only is it humorous, it shows how easy this is. And he actually does his DRE during the public service announcement.
We don't stop till you say "we-o."
Yeah, so that's it. It's a great demonstration of how easy this is, and that 2 or 3 seconds can save your life.
Yeah.
And it really is. It's that simple. It's a blood test, 2 or 3 seconds, and then most importantly is that conversation about risk stratification and risk analysis with your doctor. I mean, you've got to open your lips and talk about things. You can't. If the doctor doesn't know, he can't give you a recommendation, right? And it's there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be worried about. And it's the more you put it off, the higher the probability is that something's it's not going to be a good conversation.
Yeah.
And it really is. I can't encourage guys enough to just go get screened. I mean, just ask your doctor about it.
Yeah, if you're peeing in Morse code or can't get an erection, talk to your doctor. They hear this all the time. Don't be embarrassed. So again, Mike, I want to thank you for coming down to the studio high atop the Biltmore Hotel in downtown New Braunfels, Texas. I hope you enjoyed the gift basket we put in your room. If you're listening to this and you've gotten this far, hopefully you've learned something a little bit about leading in the face of adversity. Follow the Admiral's Almanac wherever you get your podcasts. So, Mike, I know you sent me an email requesting my help in one area, and I'm glad to help and be part of the working group.
Thank you very much, Admiral. Appreciate the time and appreciate your concern for all those vets and those sailors that you led throughout your career. So thank you for your service and thank you for what you're doing now. And it's a pleasure to be a part of this.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
I've stopped